The Cabinet has just had a long, detailed and impassioned debate on the draft withdrawal agreement and the outline political declaration on our future relationship with the European Union. These documents were the result of thousands of hours of hard negotiation by UK officials and many meetings which I and other ministers held with our EU counterparts. I firmly believe that the draft withdrawal agreement was the best that could be negotiated, and it was for the Cabinet to decide whether to move on in the talks. The choices before us were difficult, particularly in relation to the Northern Ireland backstop. But the collective decision of Cabinet was that the government should agree the draft withdrawal agreement and the outline political declaration. This is a decisive step which enables us to move on and finalise the deal in the days ahead. These decisions were not taken lightly, but I believe it is a decision that is firmly in the national interest. When you strip away the detail, the choice before us is clear. This deal, which delivers on the vote of the referendum, which brings back control of our money, laws and borders, ends free movement, protects jobs, security and our union, or leave with no deal or no Brexit at all. I know that there will be difficult days ahead. This is a decision which will come under intense scrutiny, and that is entirely as it should be and entirely understandable. But the choice was this deal, which enables us to take back control and to build a brighter future for our country, or going back to square one, with more division, more uncertainty and a failure to deliver on the referendum. It's my job as Prime Minister to explain the decisions that the government has taken, and I stand ready to do that, beginning tomorrow with a statement in Parliament. But if I may end by just saying this, I believe that what I owe to this country is to take decisions that are in the national interest. And I firmly believe, with my head and my heart, that this is a decision which is in the best interests of our entire United Kingdom.
Now, this agreement is a decisive, a crucial step in concluding these negotiations. This negotiation has never been, in my mind, and never will be, one against the other. Never. I have always said that we're negotiating with the United Kingdom, not against the United Kingdom, and in the respect of their sovereign choice, the choice they made to leave the European Union. And tonight, as I said, it's a crucial step.
A crucial step. All right, let's talk about this crucial step. And to do that, my first guest tonight is an authority on Brexit. He's written several books about the UK's exit from the EU, including What Has the EU Ever Done for Us? He spent several years as Berlin correspondent for The Times, a British newspaper. He is now The Times Washington editor, and that is where he is this evening. David Charter. David, it's good to see you. Welcome back to The Day. Let me get your response, first of all, to what has happened on 10 Downing Street in just the last hour or so.
Thank you very much, Brent. And I have to say, it was always going to come to this. It was always going to be between the two extremes of a hard Brexit and no deal, or actually somehow staying within the European Union. There was always going to be some kind of messy compromise in the middle, which Theresa May hopes will satisfy enough people to get through Parliament. From what we've seen of the deal, and of course it is still emerging as we speak, she has ploughed a furrow that takes Britain out of the European Union as expected on March the 29th. It keeps Britain in the customs union well beyond the leaving date while the country sorts out its final end-stage relationship with the European Union. And it is the details of that which will be pored over most closely just to see whether that is, on the words of the Brexiteers, a betrayal of Brexit. It ties Britain too closely, or is in fact the best compromise possible.
And what is your assessment, David? I mean, it does leave Britain in the customs union. So, you know, technically, when Theresa May says Brexit means Brexit, it really doesn't, does it?
Well, it leaves Britain in the customs union for the foreseeable future. The problem, Brent, we've talked about this as time has gone by. There were three major questions to resolve. The question of the money between what Britain will owe the EU as it leaves, the question of the ability of British citizens to live their lives normally in the EU and EU citizens to live and work in Britain. Those two seem to have been resolved satisfactorily. It was the third big sticking point, the question of the Irish border. Will there be new infrastructure to monitor customs and goods on the Irish border? Continues to be the big problem and necessitates Britain, for now, staying in the customs union to in order a smooth departure while the final details of that arrangement are worked out. Nobody's worked it out yet. And whether or not Britain stays closely in the customs union depends on getting a good solution to that question. If we can resolve it by leaving the customs union, then the government will. But will the Brexiteers accept that? I don't know. They sound like they won't.
And there have been members of the DUP, which is that Northern Ireland party that is helping, support the government of Theresa May. Members tonight going on record calling the deal appalling, saying that if British voters could read it, they would reject it as well. When you consider that, then, what does that mean about the possibility of this government not lasting? What about the possibility of early elections?
Well, the DUP does prop up Theresa May's government. Its MPs give her wafer-thin majority in Parliament. So the question of whether she is able to survive if she loses their support does now come into play. If they are absolutely adamant that this deal does not satisfy them, then her government is in crisis. It could end up being a minority government. She could decide to try and govern without the support of the DUP in a minority government. That would come to a crisis point, for example, if she needed to pass big legislation that's not Brexit related, like the budget, and the DUP refused. The question is, would they be prepared to bring down the government in that case when they might get a Labour government? Labour has said that it's committed to Brexit, but it wants a different type of Brexit to the Conservatives. It's not 100% clear how they would resolve the Northern Ireland issue. I don't know whether they would be prepared to risk a general election.
The EU's chief negotiator, Mr. Barnier, was asked this evening what would be the EU's response if the UK Parliament rejects this deal. So he didn't want to answer the question tonight. I mean, you are the authority on Brexit more than anyone that I can think of. What do you think would happen if Parliament says no?
There are really two scenarios, Brent, if Parliament says no. One is that Britain has a catastrophic departure from the European Union, which it hasn't really prepared for, and it has to fall back on existing agreements like the World Trade Organization rules, which bring in quite high tariffs in many goods between the Britain outside and the European Union on one side, and would cause economic chaos. The markets would go crazy. The other alternative is that the EU that has some kind of emergency extension of arrangements with Britain, which allows it to stay in while it forms a new government to try and sort out the situation of Theresa May's government falling and perhaps having to call a general election. And that would very much depend upon the powers in Brussels and the European Union powers to help Britain avoid a hard Brexit.
Yeah, so it still remains to be seen if that hard Brexit will indeed be avoided. We will have to see. David Charter joining us tonight from Washington. David, thank you very much. It's good to have your insights as always.